Bill Gates is planning to release 500 million mosquitoes to save the human race.
To eat us all? To kill us all?
I mean, part of it will be eating us.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's what mosquitoes do.
Well, yeah, I know. Are they trying to kill us all? Will that save the human race, ending the human race?
No, he thinks that releasing hundreds of millions of virus-carrying mosquitoes will save us, will prevent deaths, apparently. And I mean, I'm mildly skeptical.
I feel like Africa is a case study for this.
Well,
It doesn't seem to work.
We'll get into it shortly.
All right.
But before we do, go and enjoy one of Dan's latest Brokenomics episodes, which is an investment series he's been doing with a guy called Peter Lowry. Now, Peter Lowry was a former Jupiter fund manager, and the Jupiter fund manages $50 billion worth of assets, and he was a former manager of it, right? So if you're interested in investing, then he's going to know one or two things about it, and Dan got to pick his brains extensively on this. Very interesting conversation. You might think, well, how's that relevant? Well, we know a few other billionaire fund managers who are interested in spreading mosquitoes everywhere to save the world.
Don't compare this man to Bill Gates.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I feel that's an unfair comparison.
Yeah, Peter isn't.
He's not a Saturday morning cartoon villain.
No, he's not. He's a very nice chap. I went to dinner with him. He was really nice guy.
There you go.
So anyway, in 2016, the FDA approved the risk assessment. Approved this company's attempt to save the world by flooding it with mosquitoes.
No wonder you're stumbling over that sentence.
Yeah,
I don't understand it.
I couldn't think of a good way of framing it that didn't make it sound like the plan of a villain, right?
This is all very G.I. Joe so far.
Yeah, the firm is called Oxytec. It's based in Abingdon, UK, and it's funded not just by Bill Gates, but it is partially, of course, funded by Bill Gates.
There are other members of the Legion of Doom involved in this.
I can tell you who they are if you like.
Oh, all right.
The initial 11 investors included the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, JP Morgan Chase, the World Bank, Merck, Pfizer, and GlaxoSmithKline. Doesn't that just put your mind at ease?
Trustworthy fellas.
Doesn't that just make you think, oh, thank God, they're releasing 500 million malaria-infested mosquitoes. If it was someone else, I'd be concerned. I'm not even joking. So this is from this paper, right? In this paper, he's asking, well, why are they doing this exactly? So the plan is they were asking to field test biotechnology to try and reduce mosquito-borne diseases. And he points out, well, the US does not have a high incidence of mosquito-borne diseases. Why do we need to do this in Florida?
That's an excellent question.
That is an excellent question, isn't it? So they approved Oxyts, or whatever they're called, genetically modified Aedes aegypti mosquito as a public health tool. And he's like, yeah, so they want to solve public health problems of the global south by means of their patented products. Some powerful non-state actors committed to capitalism or neoliberalism believe they can do better than the democratic state. Therefore, they have chosen to take on some roles of the state, motivated by the conviction that they can be just as efficient, and effective. And so, of course, Bill, Melinda Gates, JP Morgan Chase, and all the rest have invested in this. I mean, the Gates Foundation put $75 million into this, right? So it's not small fry. It's not just pocket change, although it probably is to Bill Gates. But they aim to use these genetically engineered mosquitoes to wipe out malaria in regions of sub-Saharan Africa. Why release them into Florida then? What are you doing? Right. A 2016 MIT Technology Review article notes that Gates Foundation said it no longer believes that malaria can be wiped out without a genetically engineered mosquito gene drive.
So if you're in sub-Saharan Africa and you're constantly at risk of malaria from mosquitoes coming around and possibly biting and transferring it to you, how are you supposed to tell the difference between the ones that cure your malaria or just give you malaria?
It is slightly more clever than that.
Oh,
because
all right.
these are supervillains. You've got to give them some credit.
Sorry, right? I forgot about that.
So they have genetically engineered the Aedes, or how it's pronounced, aegypti mosquitoes, to include a heritable synthetic genetic sequence that makes them dependent on a chemical called tetracycline, which is expected that if they don't get this, then the mosquitoes, when they mate with their wild female counterparts, 95% of the resulting progeny will inherit the tetracycline dependency trait, and so they're not expected to survive into adulthood in environments that do not have sufficient amounts of that chemical. This is literally the plot of Jurassic Park.
And this is all wild expectations as well. Well, we expect that they go out and this will happen.
Yeah, but this is exactly what Henry Wu does in Jurassic Park with the velociraptors and the other creatures. They're like, well, I can't remember the name of the amino acid they're lacking. They're like, so yeah, we have to give them the amino acid or they'll die. It's like, oh, well, they can get it from their environment, which again happens in Jurassic Park. So anyway, like it's entirely possible these mosquitoes simply won't die if they can find it in their environment, right? And so he in this article, the author says, well, I'm interested in why this?
Yeah, why?
Yeah,
He gets the proposal, but why?
yeah, exactly. By evaluating the FDA's assessment of the proposed uncaged field trial in Key Haven, Florida, and by identifying the low incidence of mosquito-borne diseases in states in the US, this paper has raised the question of why the sponsors of biotechnology seek to conduct uncaged field trials in the US. Again, okay, why not do it in the Congo, where they actually have malaria-bearing mosquitoes? Why wouldn't you do it there? Why would you do it in Florida?
Well, we don't want to risk our precious Africans being hurt in the trials. Floridians, though.
Well, actually, it's argued that proponents of biotechnologies may be interested in using the fact that the US has a regulatory agency that has authorized uncaged field trials of genetically engineered mosquitoes to urge other countries to permit uncaged field trials and commercial use of patented biotechnologies. So they're like, well, look, they're doing it in America. Don't you want that too? Here's some money. Anyway, so in 2021, Bill Gates released 150,000 mosquitoes in Florida. There you go. Good luck. Just Oxytec are like, yeah, we've got 150,000 mosquitoes ready to go. Okay, this sounds crazy, but what are you going to do, right? But the UK has apparently already tested these mosquitoes in Brazil, Malaysia, Panama, and the Cayman Islands. They hadn't received regulatory approval for the US, but it has now. According to the study, these carry a gene that it kills the female progeny in the early larval stages. So fingers crossed that does happen, and life doesn't find a way, right? And so yes, they've released all these batches, and the researchers will make use of capture devices to trap mosquitoes for study. Because of course, how would you know that this is working? So they just plan to just trap as many mosquitoes, and they've added a fluorescent marker gene, and so they under a particular kind of light they fluoresce.
Isn't there? I don't think I've watched it, but isn't there an episode of Black Mirror where they have genetically modified or robot bees that get unleashed and start killing people?
It's actually also the plot of Jurassic Park Dominion.
I've not
They've
watched
got
that
genetically engineered locusts.
I've only ever watched the first one.
Well, yeah, and I don't blame you. It was terrible. But my new Jurassic Park film comes out, and my son's like, "Oh, can we watch that?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, why not? It'll at least be CGI dinosaurs." And like half the film is taken up with this plot about genetically engineered locusts that have escaped from the biolab and are going to ravage the food supplies of the Earth. It's really boring.
There wasn't a strange man in glasses and a sweater vest sat on the row behind you taking notes, was there?
I mean, I didn't see one, but I went to the Swindon cinema. So I mean, maybe if it was in LA or something. But yeah, anyway, it's the same. It's again the same plot of the Jurassic Park movie somehow, right? But Snopes stepped in and were like, "Hang on a second, you're not spreading conspiracy theories, are you?" And fact check.
Here's the whole story.
Well, if you want to scroll down to the fact check on that, John, it's kind of true. Look at the line. Bill Gates himself is not releasing the mosquitoes into the wild.
However, he is funding the people who
Yes. Bill Gates himself isn't opening the box with the mosquitoes.
The only way they can ever fact check this is just by taking the sentence, Bill Gates is doing this literally like he's releasing them.
Yes. That's exactly what the Snopes fact check is. He personally is not doing it. But of course, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is providing the funding to genetically modify and release mosquitoes in various locations, including Florida. Yes, we know.
Remarkable.
But also they go, hang on a second, we've got even more of a fact check on this, right? Because Oxytec is being funded by multiple different partners, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did give that company grants, right? But it was to do other things and not just that thing.
What other things would those other things be?
No idea. We've also got another fact check. This isn't the next pandemic, you know.
I mean, I've got an idea for what else other things you could do. You know, maybe hounds with insulin-tipped fangs released into areas of diabetes. There you go.
Insulin delivering pit bulls.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, entirely possible, frankly. But again, another fact check. It's not the next pandemic. What are you talking about? The virus has no correlation with the West Nile virus was reported in Florida. Like, the virus has got no correlation to the release of mosquitoes. No governments have mentioned they caused harm.
Was there a spike at the time when all of this was done in cases in Florida?
Well, that was only in 2022. But Bill Gates wrote a blog post about this.
Oh, all right.
I mean, he literally has a blog called Gates Notes.
I think I've looked at this before for things.
Until I fell down this rabbit hole, I had no idea Bill Gates had a blog.
Did you not?
No.
I'm sure I've shown you things off it before, but anyway.
Possibly. I just don't remember it. But he says this, and this is just brilliant, right? Inside a 2-story brick building in Medellin, Colombia, scientists work long hours in muggy labs breeding millions and millions of mosquitoes. And they're the good guys. They tend to the insects' every need as they grow from larvae to pupae to adults, keeping the temperature just right and feeding them generous helpings of fish meal, sugar, and of course, blood. It's got a large supply of blood on hand, do you, Bill?
Bill Gates approaches you in a bar. You got any blood, mate?
Yeah.
I need some blood.
I'll pay you for the blood. I mean, it's not like he's going to skimp out on that.
Well, yeah, that's true. Haggle over the blood with Bill Gates.
I was the richest man in the world. I can afford your blood. But then they release them across the country to breed with wild mosquitoes that can carry dengue and other viruses, threatening to sicken and kill the population of Colombia. That might sound like the beginnings of a Hollywood writer's film horror plot, but it's not. This factory is real. Yeah, it does.
Even he himself is like, okay, I sound like Dr. Frankenstein. I sound like an evil villain. This sounds like the beginning of Resident Evil.
I know this sounds evil, but trust me, bro. It's like, of all the people I don't trust, bro, it's someone who went to Epstein's Island and was like, well, his lifestyle isn't for me. It's like, no, I don't trust you.
I just bet Bill Gates is testing out like rage-inducing drugs on chimpanzees right now. In a lab underneath London. We know what's going to happen.
Yeah, but that's it. And everyone's like, well, why is the Umbrella Corporation just so evil? And it's like, yeah, it's a great question. It's because they think they're good, right? He says the mosquitoes aren't being released to terrorize the local population. Far from it. They're actually helping to save and improve millions of lives. Well, I feel reassured. Bill Gates is just releasing hundreds of millions of malaria-carrying mosquitoes, guys. Trust us, it's going to save the world.
For your own good.
He says, well, a randomly controlled trial conducted in Indonesia. Why did you need to conduct it in Indonesia, Bill? Found that Wolbachia-carrying mosquitoes reduced the number of dengue cases by 77% and hospitalizations by 86%. See, isn't this just great? Nothing more to worry about. Mosquitoes to the rescue for a disease I've never even heard of, right? The demand for these life-saving mosquitoes continues to grow. Popular demand for life-saving mosquitoes, mate. Don't question it.
Maybe these diseases, like you say, I've never heard of some of these diseases, dengue or dengue, whatever it's called. Yeah. Maybe it is epidemic in those countries. We are, at the end of the day, little Englanders.
It's not epidemic in Florida.
Yeah, it's not epidemic in Florida, but it's just very, very strange method of, generally speaking, in the past, we have had, maybe this is because people were hesitant with the vaccines and he's gone, right, okay, you're not willing to take them. Well, I'll get a bug to literally bite it into you then.
Which, don't give them ideas. That isn't the plan. Remember, the plan is for the not sterile, but like the males with the faulty genes to mate with wild females to produce infertile or dead offspring, right? Offspring that die in youth. So the plan is to reduce just the number of mosquitoes.
You will receive mosquito vaccines in the future, though. This is what this is leading to.
It probably is. Yeah, it probably is. I would not be shocked, right? But as it says, the demand for these life-saving mosquitoes is just through the roof. Everyone's like, God, I just need more mosquitoes. The factory is producing more than 30 million mosquitoes per week. Really? Industrially produced mosquitoes. This is such a glorious new future.
This is a much better plot than anything in the most recent series of Black Mirror, though, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm only producing hundreds of millions of mosquitoes. Like, trust me, I'm the good guy, bro. I'm not a weird freak. Like, the demand for these mosquitoes is through the roof. These amazing mosquitoes are taking flight and saving lives. So we'll bang our pots and pans for the mosquitoes like we do the NHS. And yeah, if you go to the next one, there's going to be 500 million of these produced. 500 million mosquitoes that are definitely going to solve all the problems. They say in this, the mosquito release in Florida was fiercely opposed by a significant portion of the local community, as well as outside activists and experts. Although many say that with better controls and more advanced research, they'd be more open to the trial in their community. But for now, critics say there are scientific flaws with Oxytec's plan for the Florida release and insufficient safety testing. No. What could be the flaw with releasing hundreds of millions of mosquitoes into Florida? What could be the flaw?
You tell me.
We'll get to that in a second, in fact. Many in the community say they feel that the experiment is being forced upon them with no way to opt out other than packing up and leaving the area. I find this criminal. We are being bullied into this experiment, said one resident at a recent town council meeting. I find it criminal that we are being subjected to this terrorism by our own Florida Keys Mosquito Control Board. So the people charged with controlling the mosquito population are like, yeah, we're going to release hundreds of millions of mosquitoes. It seems a bit counterintuitive, but theoretically, they're going to reduce the mosquito population. It's like, right. And when that doesn't happen, what then?
Spend money to make money. Release
Yes.
mosquitoes to reduce mosquitoes.
And this, remember, you will recall, was all with the aid of reducing malaria. Right? The noble humanitarian goal of reducing malaria. Would it surprise you to learn for the first time in 20 years, malaria has been found in Florida?
I was hoping that wouldn't be the horrifying shock twist of this story, but
We just released loads of African mosquitoes into Florida to help reduce malaria. And now there's malaria, if you go to the next one, in Florida, which is just amazing. Like, who could have predicted this? 5 new cases of malaria, 1 in Texas and 4 in Florida, are alarming officials because they were locally acquired, meaning a mosquito in the US was carrying the parasite. What a crazy coincidence.
who could have seen that one coming?
Just a coincidence, bro, right? This hasn't happened since 2003, and almost all cases of malaria announced in the US are from people traveled outside of the country where they caught malaria from somewhere in Africa. But these 5 new cases, seen in people who hadn't traveled abroad, raise fears that local mosquitoes could be spreading the disease to other people. Well, where did these come from?
Who could have predicted this?
Sure, it's nothing to worry about. The real problem is that it's climate change. Climate change
Should have known that
definitely.
mosquitoes, like birds, are migrating.
Climate change is definitely playing a role in vector-borne disease throughout the US, said one expert. We know in general that climate can be one of the many factors that can impact vector-borne diseases, said the CDC spokesman. Today, global travel and trade allow vector-borne diseases to be moved around the world and transmitted by local mosquitoes or ticks. So there we go. It's climate change that has done this. It's not Bill Gates releasing 500 million mosquitoes into Florida that's given people malaria from mosquitoes. It's climate change.
I knew it.
You're just a conspiracy theorist.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Epoch series, this episode on Thomas Becket. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.